The chandelier above the dining room cast golden light across the face of every person sitting at the long mahogany table. I was wearing the sapphire dress Logan had bought me for this exact moment, my hand resting in his under the expensive tablecloth. The Pierce family mansion was everything I'd imagined. Ornate, cold, impressive. His mother, Catherine, was telling a story about their furniture collection when I noticed the silence. The accountant had just walked in, whispering something urgent to Logan's father, Richard. Catherine stopped mid-sentence. Richard's face changed from pleased host to something darker. His hand trembled as he pulled out a leather ledger from beneath the table. The casual dinner energy shifted instantly to something heavy and wrong. Catherine stood up, her chair scraping loudly. "Where is this money, Logan?" Her voice shook with rage. She slammed the ledger open, pointing at a series of transactions. $500,000. Gone. The words felt like they were happening to someone else in another room in another life. Logan's name was listed on every single transaction. I froze, my hand still under the tablecloth. He slowly released my fingers. His face went pale. "It's a mistake," he whispered. "Just a mistake." But the way everyone turned to stare at us, the way his sister Marina flinched, the way his father's jaw clenched, I knew no mistake had been made. In that moment, suspended between the chandelier light and the mahogany table, everything I believed about Logan Pierce shattered into pieces I would spend months learning to recognize. The drive away from the mansion happened fast, Logan's hands gripping the steering wheel like he might strangle it. He didn't speak for the first 20 minutes, just drove through the dark streets of the city with a desperation that frightened me. When he finally pulled over into an empty parking garage, he turned to me with wild eyes. "You have to believe me," he said, his voice cracking. "It's all a misunderstanding. My mother is jealous of my success. She's always been jealous of what I'm trying to build." He took my hand, pressing it to his chest like I could feel his heart and know the truth. "Please, Arya. I need you to trust me." I wanted to believe him. The charming man I'd known for a year was suddenly vulnerable, desperate, and I felt the pull of wanting to save someone. But as he tried to explain where the money came from, his words became circular, contradictory, nonsensical. He blamed his mother. He blamed the accountants. He blamed a business deal that had gone wrong. With each explanation, the hole in his story grew wider. I stayed silent, watching him unravel, realizing that maybe I had never really known Logan Pierce at all. Maybe I'd known only the version of him he wanted me to see. That realization was the loneliest feeling in the world. I met Logan Pierce 1 year earlier at a corporate gala. My name is Arya Ward, and I was working as an interior designer at a mid-sized firm, making decent money but dreaming of something bigger. He approached me at the bar with that smile that would later become my greatest weakness. "You look like you're thinking about something important," he said, handing me a glass of champagne I hadn't asked for. I told him I was admiring the architecture of the ballroom, the way the light fixtures created depth, how the color palette influenced the mood. His eyes lit up like I'd said something profound. "That's the kind of thinking that builds empires," he said. "I'm Logan Pierce, by the way. My family owns Pierce Interiors. I'm launching my own branch, going independent, doing things differently." He said it with such confidence, such certainty about his future, that I believed him completely. He seemed like the dream man who didn't just tolerate my ambitions but celebrated them. He seemed like someone who could understand me. Our relationship moved at lightning speed. Within weeks, he was taking me to restaurants I'd only seen in magazines. He rented cars that cost more than my monthly salary. He bought me designer clothes and talked about our future like it was something guaranteed, already written in stone. "I want to spoil you," he would say, pulling out a black credit card before I could even look at the menu. "You deserve the best, and I'm going to give it to you." I remember my best friend, Natalie, warning me that something felt off. "Rich people don't usually spend money this carelessly," she said. "It's like he's performing wealth instead of actually having it." But I dismissed her concerns, convinced she was just jealous or didn't understand how love worked. Looking back, I realized she was seeing the truth I was too infatuated to see. The first red flag was small enough that I could ignore it at the time. We were at a restaurant, and the waiter brought the wrong wine to our table. Logan's face changed so drastically that I barely recognized him. His jaw clenched, his eyes darkened, And he spoke to the waiter in a tone that made my stomach tight with discomfort. Do I have to spell everything out for someone like you? The rage lasted only a second before it disappeared behind his perfect smile, but that second changed something in me. It planted a seed of doubt I couldn't quite water or uproot. I asked him if he was okay and he said he was just stressed about work. He kissed my forehead and apologized. The kindness that followed the anger confused me more than the anger itself had. One afternoon I went to his office unannounced, wanting to surprise him with lunch. The building was impressive on the outside but felt hollow inside. As I walked down the hallway toward his office, I heard raised voices. His sister's voice was the loudest. The books don't balance, Logan. The books don't balance, and you know it. I froze outside the closed door, suddenly aware that I was listening to something I shouldn't hear. Logan noticed me through the frosted glass. His expression shifted from angry to smooth in the space of a heartbeat. He opened the door and immediately started talking about wedding plans, about venues and flowers, about a future that felt designed to distract me. His sister, Marina, looked at me with something in her eyes I didn't recognize. Pity, maybe. Or warning. He proposed during an elaborately orchestrated dinner at the city's most expensive restaurant. There were roses covering every surface, a rented string quartet playing in the corner, and a ring that probably cost more than my car. I said yes through tears, feeling like the luckiest woman alive. I had no idea that I was about to become entangled in a lie so complex that it would take months to unravel. For one perfect moment, I believed that I had found everything I wanted. A week later, his credit card was declined at a jewelry store where I wanted to buy a wedding band. He called it a bank error, speaking to his bank with an anger that seemed disproportionate to the situation. But he took care of it, or so I thought. I never questioned it further. When I asked to spend more time with his parents, to bond with them as his future wife, Logan began to stall. He said his family was toxic, controlling, desperate to keep him dependent. He painted himself as the misunderstood son, the one fighting for independence against people who didn't want him to succeed. My father takes credit for everything I do, he told me. My mother resents that I'm building something of my own. They're jealous of you, of us, of what we have. I took his side completely, defending him to Natalie, believing I was being loyal to the man I loved. In reality, I was becoming isolated from anyone who might have helped me see the truth. When he asked me to quit my job to help him decorate his new office space, I did it without hesitation. The building was in a part of the city that seemed half abandoned, with empty storefronts and flickering lights in the parking garage. But Logan's confidence was hypnotic. He assured me that the location was strategic, that clients would come, that this was the beginning of everything we talked about. I'm going to build an empire, he said, and you're going to be right there beside me. I spent weeks decorating that empty office, hanging expensive artwork, arranging furniture that never quite looked like it belonged. Something didn't add up, but I ignored the feeling, choosing to believe in him instead. His mother showed up at the office unannounced one afternoon, her face tight with controlled anger. She ignored me completely, looking through me like I was invisible. She told Logan that the accountants had found irregular withdrawals, large sums of money moving through accounts that didn't make sense. Logan yelled at her to leave, his voice rising in a way that made my skin feel cold. She left without looking at me, but not before I caught her expression. She looked afraid. I stood frozen in that empty office, feeling completely invisible in their war, completely unable to understand what was happening. That night, he showed up at my apartment shaking, his hands trembling as he gripped my shoulders. He said his family wanted to destroy him. He cried for the first time since I'd known him, his whole body shaking with what seemed like genuine anguish. I held him, believing every word, wanting desperately to be the person who saved him from his toxic family. I comforted him while those whispers in my mind grew louder, until I forced myself to ignore them completely. I chose him over my own instincts, and that choice would cost me almost everything. Over the next weeks, expensive gifts returned. Designer bags appeared at my apartment. He booked us a vacation to the coast. He bought me a new car, leasing it under his name with a confidence that seemed absolute. I asked where the money was coming from, and he said he'd closed a deal, a major project for his business. But I noticed something that made my throat tighten. The car documents listed the same company name that appeared on the letterhead at the Pierce family office. The same company his family owned. The realization sat heavy in my chest, but I pushed it away, afraid of what it might mean if I examined it too closely. The morning a deliverman dropped off an invoice meant for Pierce Interiors, I finally started seeing what I'd been avoiding. The invoice listed bulk furniture orders that matched the pieces scattered throughout Logan's apartment, the pieces he claimed to have purchased personally. My hands shook as I held the paper. The furniture wasn't his personal collection. It was his family's inventory. He was moving their stock under his own name, creating a false trail of transactions. The realization was like watching a building collapse in slow motion, each floor crashing down one after another. My fiancé wasn't just a liar. He was a thief. I confronted him calmly that evening, showing him the invoice and asking for an explanation. He denied everything at first, then accused me of snooping, of violating his privacy, of not trusting him. His voice changed, becoming cold in a way that frightened me more than anger ever could. "Trust means not asking questions," he said. He kissed my forehead, a gesture that had once felt loving but now felt like manipulation. I felt trapped in confusion and guilt, wondering if maybe I was being unreasonable, if maybe I was the problem. That's how manipulation works. It makes you question your own perceptions until you're no longer sure what's real. I started documenting everything in secret. I photographed receipts, forwarded emails to myself, saved screenshots of texts. My phone became a repository for evidence of a life built on lies. My gut screamed that something darker was happening, something I didn't fully understand yet. I just knew that I needed to protect myself, that I needed to have proof of what I was seeing. The secret documentation became my lifeline, the thing that kept me grounded when Logan's explanations threatened to pull me under. His sister, Marina, called me one night when I was alone in my apartment. Her voice was shaking, desperate, terrified. She said that Logan had drained one of the company's accounts, that he'd been stealing from them for months, that she had proof. She begged me to leave him before he dragged me down with him. "You seem like a good person, Arya. Don't let him destroy you like he's destroying us." The call lasted only 5 minutes, but it confirmed everything I'd been afraid to admit. Marina's voice carried a weight of truth that I couldn't ignore anymore. We met secretly at a small cafe, Marina looking over her shoulder constantly like she was afraid of being seen. She showed me screenshots of digital signatures that weren't hers, approval documents that had been forged, money transfers that traced back to accounts that didn't exist officially, but appeared in their company records. "My father knows," she whispered. "He's covering it up to avoid public shame. But it has to stop, Arya. It has to stop before someone gets hurt." She slid a folder across the table containing bank statements, transaction records, and evidence of embezzlement that went back years. My hands shook as I held the proof of what I'd suspected but hadn't fully admitted to myself. When I got home that evening, Logan was waiting in my apartment. He knew where I'd been. He'd somehow found out about the meeting with Marina. His calm voice was worse than any rage could have been. He said I was betraying our love, that I was choosing his family over him, that I was proving that I never really trusted him. That night I barely slept. My mind raced through everything I thought I knew about him, everything I believed about our relationship, and none of it felt real anymore. I hid the flash drive containing Marina's evidence in the bottom of my purse, terrified that he would find it. The next morning, his mother called me, her voice tight with controlled anger. She called me a gold digger, accused me of being the reason Logan changed, suggested that I'd manipulated him into committing crimes. Her words cut deep, deeper than I wanted to admit. But beneath the pain, something shifted. The victim I'd been playing in their story transformed into something else. I became angry. Real, genuine, powerful anger. I decided at that moment that I wouldn't be their scapegoat. I would protect myself and the truth, whatever that cost me. At work, I discovered that my reputation had been systematically destroyed. Rumors spread that I'd stolen design concepts and leaked company secrets. My clients began canceling appointments. My boss called me into his office with an expression that told me everything. "I'm sorry, Arya. We're going to have to let you go. Multiple clients have expressed concerns about working with you." I tried to explain, but the decision was already made. Somehow, Logan's family had started a smear campaign, and they'd done it brilliantly. I was unemployed and unemployable in my industry. I spent 2 weeks homeless, staying on friends' couches, trying to understand what had happened to my life. Meanwhile, Logan posted pictures online of lavish vacations, designer bags, expensive dinners. The contrast between the fake luxury he was flaunting and the reality of my homelessness was almost unbearable. My anger grew into something focused and sharp. I wouldn't be their silent victim. I wouldn't disappear quietly while he pretended everything was fine. I began making phone calls, researching investigators, preparing to tell the truth. Marina gave me the name of a private investigator who specialized in financial fraud. We met in a coffee shop, and I laid out everything I knew, everything I'd documented, everything Marina had shown me. The investigator, a woman named Patricia, listened carefully, her expression growing more serious with each detail. "This is bigger than we thought," she finally said. "Let me look into this. Don't contact anyone. Don't tell anyone you're cooperating with me. Can you do that?" I nodded, and we began building a case quietly, tracking transactions, tracing shell accounts, following the money as it moved through systems designed to hide its origin. As Patricia dug deeper into the Pierce family's financial history, a darker picture emerged. Logan wasn't acting alone. His father had covered up several embezzlement incidents over the years, all to maintain the family's public image. Logan was just continuing a cycle that had been established long before I ever met him. The corruption ran through the entire family like a poison that had been hidden for so long that everyone involved had stopped questioning it. They'd simply accepted theft as part of how business worked. I sent an anonymous file containing all of Patricia's findings to a business journalist I'd carefully selected. The file included everything: transaction records, forged documents, proof of the cover-ups, the names of everyone involved. I waited, terrified and exhilarated, for what would happen next. Within a week, rumors began spreading through the business community that the Pierce empire was under investigation. Logan started calling me constantly, his voice cycling between desperate and angry. I ignored every call, knowing that the truth was about to explode into the open. He showed up at my apartment door, furious and desperate. His designer clothes looked wrinkled, his perfect hair was disheveled, and his eyes held a wildness I'd never seen before. "Why would you do this to me?" he screamed. "I loved you. I gave you everything." I looked at him, this man I'd once believed I would marry, and I felt nothing but a deep, clear sadness. "You did this to yourself," I said quietly. The calmness in my voice scared him more than any anger would have. He left without another word, and I locked the door, knowing I'd never see him the same way again. The headlines exploded across the business news within days. Pierce Interiors under fraud investigation. Luxury furniture empire faces financial collapse. The stock market reacted immediately, share prices plummeting as investors fled. Logan's father had to step down from his position. Marina moved out of the family mansion, publicly distancing herself from the scandal. The family fortress of denial began to crack, and they couldn't hold it together anymore. Their entire empire, built on lies and theft, started crumbling like a structure made of sand. Logan tried one more time to make me the scapegoat. He claimed to authorities that I'd leaked company data for revenge, that I was a scorned woman trying to destroy his family out of spite. But my receipts proved everything. I had documentation showing that I hadn't accessed company systems in months. I had witnesses, Marina included, who could testify to the embezzlement. His lies, the same lies that had worked on me for so long, didn't work on the legal system. For once, his charm and manipulation had no power. The courtroom was cold and formal, nothing like the dramatic scenes I'd imagined. I sat quietly in the back row while Logan fumbled through questions, trying to charm the judge with the same smile that had once made me believe in him. The prosecutor unveiled the paper trail methodically, matching his lavish spending to every stolen cent: credit card statements, wire transfers, forged documents, shell accounts. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. His lawyer tried to argue circumstantial evidence, but the prosecution had built a case so solid that nothing could topple it. He received community service and restitution, which felt inadequate for the damage he'd caused. The company faced bankruptcy, employees lost jobs, investors lost money. Watching him leave the courtroom pale and defeated, I felt sorrow instead of triumph. He looked exhausted in a way that suggested the consequences were finally catching up with him. I realized that revenge, real revenge, isn't as satisfying as I'd thought it would be. The truth was satisfying. Justice was satisfying. But his suffering brought me no joy. After the scandal settled, I started over from nothing. I took freelance projects, small interior design jobs that paid modestly, but helped rebuild my reputation. I used everything I'd learned from watching the Pierce family's empire collapse to inform my own business decisions. I started Ward Studio, focusing on ethical design principles, transparency with clients, and quality over the performance of wealth. My small projects grew faster than I expected because clients could sense my honesty. They trusted me because I had nothing to hide. Months later, Marina visited my small studio, bringing coffee and gratitude. She thanked me for exposing the truth, for being brave enough to tell it despite the personal cost. She told me that she'd started her own sustainable furniture line, moving away from the luxury market entirely. We laughed about how chaos had transformed into rebirth, how sometimes the destruction of something false allows something real to grow in its place. Our friendship, forged in crisis, became one of the most valuable relationships in my life. One evening, I saw Logan again at a cafe near my studio. He was working as a delivery manager for a logistics company, collecting packages and running routes. He looked exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with his job and everything to do with consequences. Our eyes met across the coffee shop, and for a moment neither of us moved. Then we both looked away. His silence said everything. His fall had been complete and he knew it. News broke that the Pierce mansion was being auctioned to pay off debts and restitution. His parents had fled overseas, trying to escape both legal consequences and the social shame of their family's collapse. The empire that had taken decades to build had crumbled in months. I heard about this through Marina, who sent me a screenshot with a single message. "It's finally over." Looking at that headline, I felt no triumph, only peace. Karma had done its work. As I walked through my small studio one morning, sunlight pouring through the windows and illuminating the sketches pinned to my walls, I realized something profound. My success wasn't about proving anything to Logan or his family. It was about proving something to myself. Every client I gained, every project I completed, every positive review I received was proof that dignity wins over deceit. That truth builds stronger foundations than lies ever could. That real wealth is something you build honestly, not something you steal and hide. I closed my journal that evening and whispered words I'd wanted to say for months. He pretended to be wealthy, but I found real worth in losing him. That was the end of his story and the beginning of mine. I had started as a woman who believed in a lie. I had become a woman who built her life on truth. In the end, that was the only revenge I needed. The quiet victory of knowing that I had survived, that I had risen, that I was no longer the woman who needed saving. I had saved myself.